Mutagenic.
The rain never stopped in Hongwu. It fell through the uncaring sky like bad luck, bathing the city in misfortune. This had once been a thriving special economic zone, but the generals had killed it when they released the mutagen all those years ago. Carter stood in the doorway of what had once been a temple, his breath suffocated by the stale air. The jade plating on his skull ached with the cold of the sacramental. They told him the mutagen was a weapon that would quash Hongwu and halt the rebellions. That was before the prophecies started writing themselves in the cracks of the city. Before the children were born speaking in hexagrams. Before he took the bones of a shaman. The body at his feet was young, its wrists slit with ceremonial precision, the characters glowing on its forehead pulsed to some unheard rhythm. He'd seen this corpse before, in 7 seconds stochastic futures.
"You're late,"
whispered the cracked screen above the altar. There was the suggestion of a face through the endlessly glitching images. Part AI, part stock market algorithm, part something that remembered when gods were simpler beings. Liquid crystal wept from the cracks in the glass.
"The ritual won't wait."
The kill switch code hovered in his vision. The general's final solution written in blood-red pixels. The temple stank of sandalwood and spite. The chanting began. He remembered the briefing, the way the generals had smiled, their coffee steaming like dying breath. His bone hand moved first. The mirror exploded. For a moment, Carter saw all the dying tomorrows at once. He was DNA as scripture, children with eyes like broken timelines, his own death rehearsed in endless variations. Too slow, he was always too slow. Darkness. Somewhere in the rain, a terminal screen flickered to life. Somewhere a lost algorithm whispered a name that wasn't his. Somewhere the city kept breathing and there was no one left who remembered how to stop it. The future, like everything else, had always been about surrender. Surrender.
Surrender.
Captain Xarlock and the Space Pirates. The post about the real-life offices being up for sale bobbed to the top of my feed at the start of winter like a corpse in a canal. I'd been working late, our latest title already falling behind schedule. My skin smelt of stale coffee and keyboard sweat. The algorithm tried to bury the story beneath ads for SAS and meal kits, but one name snagged my eye like a barbed hook. Xarlock. I grew up in the countryside back when such a thing was possible, whereas my dad was largely indifferent to having kids, my mum actively rebelled against parenthood at every opportunity. When she did occasionally put down whatever she was watching, it was to shout at me to be quiet or send me off to classes. Groups or societies were close enough to not necessitate her having to drive. I wasted a lot of my childhood in drafty halls and stuffy classrooms learning to tie knots, play chess and learn martial arts. That is, until I found Captain Xarlock. The estate agent didn't show. Double booking, he muttered before texting me the door codes with the enthusiasm of a man mailing his own severed finger. The article had been nostalgia slop of the remember when games had soul flavour. To me, though, it read like a coroner's report for a murder I'd witnessed but never solved. I won the Jeju Digital Dreamcraft console in the school raffle. Already woefully out of date, I'd carried it home as if it were a newly born child. My parents, sensing freedom from my endless boredom, bought me a pile of used games, of which only one worked: Captain Xarlock and the Space Pirates. The disc was scratched raw, but it booted. That pixelated title screen spoke to me in some new language. Xarlock was to be the cornerstone of my teenage life. 3 days later, I owned the entire floor. I brought Sarah there with a bottle of brandy and glasses pilfered from the boardroom. Sarah understood nostalgia, the way certain memories fossilize in your neural pathways like bugs in amber. Sarah would get it. "I don't get it," she said. "You never played Xarlock? Algorithmically generated, never the same run twice. I've grokked the code a dozen times. Still don't know how half of it works." She suppressed a shudder and swirled her brandy as I flipped through a lockbox of floppy disks labelled in spidery script: Die Dr. Galacto, Last Chance for Octo-Rock, Cadet Astro Rots from the Head. "What do you make of these?" I asked, fanning them out like tarot cards. "I don't understand why you'd buy a tube," she said. "Time's the only currency left, Mick. And this place, it's bankrupt." It had been an impossibly cold day. I was 14, maybe 15. The schools had been forced to close, and my dad, zero-hour worker that he was cursing the loss of income, arguing with the bathroom walls that he would be fine to work. In the kitchen, my mum had answered the phone and burst into tears, declaring that Aunt Beth had died. To this day, I have no idea who Aunt Beth was. Taking in my lack of reaction, my lack of sadness, my mother had flown into a rage, slapping me hard and repeatedly until I tasted copper. After all she did for you! It was the first time she'd ever hit me, and probably the first time she'd been truly angry with me. Not annoyed, but enraged. Numb with shock, I went up to my room where the cold continued to eat into everything like a cancer. I racked my memory for Aunt Beth, but came up with nothing. Pure habit found me slotting Captain Xarlock and the Space Pirates. I slid into familiar screens and music, muscle memory taking over, letting my subconscious roam free. I tracked down and bought a grossly overpriced Dreamcraft dev kit, going through every disc that had anything to do with Captain Xarlock. I found some early demos and contented myself playing them into the small hours, accompanied by sporadic lines of coke and disappointed messages from Sarah, who I was beginning to think was right. What I knew, however, is that the truth was this: if there was nothing for me here, then there was nothing for me anywhere. I'd beaten Xarlock 100 times before, but that day, after clearing the Zilran expanse, the game changed. The palette inverted, the pirate ships didn't attack, they danced. weaving around my ship in patterns that made my teeth ache. I shot them. The loop reset, each iteration stranger, colors and shapes bleeding into unreality, music warping into atonal groans. By the 100th cycle, I really knew, that I was peeling back reality's wallpaper. I passed out before I reached God. I phoned work and had my diary cleared for the day. I gave myself 12 hours to finish whatever it was that I was doing in this damp office. The dust was sticking to my lungs. Then I was going to go back to work before taking Sarah somewhere hideously expensive for dinner. A delivery kid arrived with some Coke that I didn't remember ordering, but it seemed like a good omen. I booked a table at the New Tropics Lounge at 8 p.m. and sent a message asking Sarah to meet me there. The next day I awoke on the floor, half frozen, the Dreamcraft bricked. I packed a bag, took a bus into the city and never returned. Walking around Shinja in the omnipresent cold of that winter, life felt like playing a game on story mode. Achievement unlocked without effort. Success handed to me like a participation trophy. Nothing felt real. The world was mine, but it had been reduced. At the end of my sanity in the real-life office, after 11 hours of checking and archiving every single line of code related to Captain Xarlock, I was pretty certain that there was nothing of note left in the studio. Whatever had happened to me all those years ago, it was clear that I wasn't going to find any echoes of it here. I sent a message to the estate agent asking them to sell the building. It was time to let go. I left the office, turning to shut the door behind me. As the door lock clicked, I turned to see I was still in the office. A box of floppy disks lay on the desk. I flicked through them, all disks that I had checked before, but no, something was different. A red disk sat underneath, labelled in the same spidery penmanship, Aunt Beth. Sweating, I looked around the office. The desk seemed different, whiter than before. I ran to the door and through it. I was back in the office. More red discs, the desks now a pale pine, the LED lights replaced with humming strip lights. My panic subsided, and a joy took over as I ran through the door again and again, onward, to the mind of God. To the mind of God.
Terminal days. Morning. The alarm unfolded a series of wet, digital beeps. AZ woke to the smell of burnt dreams and the sound of his wife whispering into her headset. Yes, I understand the parameters. No, I won't require a bathroom break. Her fingers moved across the keyboard in perfect 30-second intervals. Rhythmic. A metronome signifying money earned and life spent. She didn't look up when he passed. The hollows under her eyes were darker today, the skin stretched tighter over her cheekbones. A stain on her collar, pale pink. He pretended not to notice. The bathroom mirror fogged. His reflection was a man-shaped void in the steam. He wiped it clean. His face came back wrong, the left pupil sluggish, delayed. Commute. The subway was full of ghosts, faces lit by the weak glow of AR lenses. The woman opposite sat strangely. Her lens flickered, her left iris freezing mid-blink, the pupil fussed with static and then dilated to an impossible pinprick. A Z wanted to vomit. His smart ring vibrated and the taste of copper filled his mouth, his daily wellness booster. The wife must have earned enough for the payments to be taken. That was good. That was something. Headlines scrolled across his lens. Local man fails to meet baseline happiness metrics.
Your wife has a drug problem.
73% of marriages exist in name only, including yours.
AZ blinked them away before realizing his lens was already off. The headlines, aware of their lack of existence, obligingly crumbled away into the ether. Work. His terminal booted to an error screen. Life incomplete. Recover corrupted data. The office smelled of ozone and microwaved rice. His co-worker Jenkins leaned over the cubicle wall. His tie knot was too tight. His Adam's apple pulsing against it. A trapped thing, pleading. A Z ignored Jenkins until he sat back down. At lunch, the vending machine dispensed a bento box. Inside was only a USB drive labeled memory number 37 and a note. You ruin everything with your indifference, but you already knew that. He closed the box and waited a few seconds before reopening it. The rice was surprisingly good, but the tuna could have used more mayo. Evening. The apartment door was unlocked. The lights were off, but the terminal cast a sickly blue pallor over the couch where his wife wasn't sitting. The terminal read, "Task complete. Wife simulation, 8 hours. Feedback. A distinct lack of joy. Bonus payment withheld due to excessive overthinking." The neuroflux vial on the coffee table was empty. Or maybe it was full. It was hard to tell in the dark. When he picked it up, the text rearranged itself. Dosage, not quite enough. Side effects, irrelevant because you'll take it anyway. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the crack, he could see the silhouette of someone lying very still. The sheets rustled with data packets and tiny bursts of corrupted noise. His smart ring vibrated again. Mandatory rest cycle initiated. Please assume position. He lay down. The ceiling pulsed like a slow, arrhythmic heart. Somewhere, an alarm was going off. The last thing he saw before the system rebooted was the date on his lens, glitching. Today is today is today is today is today. Day is today. Day is today 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 is today.
Ghosts of Silence. Silence was a devalued currency. The city pressed against my skull day and night, the hiss of advertising fracturing under acid rain, the wet cough of the man in the adjacent attic, the ceaseless drone of surveillance cams recalibrating in the dark. I paid dock rats to steal some industrial earguards from a factory, but the pressure always seeped through. My attic in the floods floated above the drowned streets like an afterthought. My attic walls wept black mold that moved when you weren't looking. The damp floorboards sagged under the weight of a long career's worth of unsold contraband. Neural jammers, bootleg pharma printers, a case of military-grade focus enhancers I'd been saving for a special occasion. The floods used to be the demarcation between the capital and docks. It now acted as host to a mix of refugees, transients, dock workers, failing religious and political groups, smugglers and anyone else unable or unwilling to live in the city proper. I lived by smuggling contraband off of the ships and into the city. I'm not a particularly strong or quick-witted man, but my father taught me to be methodical and precise in my endeavors, to plan with redundancies for every possibility. I hated the man and his lunatic religion, but his lessons allowed me to survive these insane, brutal decades. Sarah rode back on a tide of bad memories. I woke to her rifling through my pill stash, a silhouette cutting through the mist rolling off the drowned streets. "You look like shit warmed over," she said, tossing me 2 super blues. The capsules glowed faintly in the half-light. "Get dressed. We've got work." The Nootropics lounge was all bioluminescent orchids and mirrored surfaces. The maitre d' scanned our retinas with a device that made my optic implants spasm. Sarah's laugh tinkled like breaking glass as she ordered dishes that cost more than my liver. "Truffled sea urchin," she said, pushing a quivering glob toward me. "They gene print the roe in Singapore." I tried to ask her what she was doing here, but she shut me down. "Just enjoy the fucking food, Ping. It's the closest I will ever come to an apology." The Faraday suite smelled of new plastic and old dreams. Drones scuttled across the floor, scrubbing our DNA from the air, maintaining a cushion of legal doubt. "They're calling it Ghost," she said, pulling up a hologram of translucent mushrooms growing in a lab tray. "One dose permanently reduces left brain dominance. It brings compassion, love, a sense of the numinous. The kids are mainlining it at the Spire." Her teeth were whiter than when she had run. The surgeons had done good work. No trace of the girl who'd once bitten through a security guard's finger. "I have 20 kilograms on a ship just outside of port. The crew have found it and are trying to sell it. I need you to help me bring it in. I will pay very, very well." The Null Horizon stank of rust and rotten soy protein. We boarded her at night, moving through the shadows like oil slicks, multi-spectrum goggles humming. We found the captain praying to a small jade figurine in the cargo hold. He sighed as we cracked the cases. The ghost shimmered like crushed pearls, 20 kilos of pure psychedelic liberation. I didn't notice Sarah putting a bullet in the man's skull until the sound bounced off the hull. There's been a change of plan. Sarah got us into the desalination plant. She even got us all the way to the main pumping station before we were spotted. "Understand," she gasped, tipping her case of Ghost into the outlet as alarms blared. "I just wanted to set the city free." The first bullet hit her femoral artery, the blood pulsing in time with the water pumps. The security drones circled overhead, their red lasers painting kisses on her trembling lips before they silenced her forever. There was no time to respond. A shot grazed my temple, sending my HUD into a death spiral of static and half-remembered appointments. Another shot hit me in the chest. I fell backward into the rushing outlet canal. The case of Ghost I held burst open over me. The powder dissolved like a million dying stars rushing into the city's veins. Sarah's body was in the water beside me, her hair fanning out like a question mark. The prison psychs say I've been catatonic for 9 years. They're wrong. I'm in the drip of rusty pipes, in the glitch between streetlight frequencies. I am everywhere and part of everything. There is no need for silence.
A new way of living. The warehouse floor sticks to our bare feet like a partially healed scab, not from spilled drinks, but from decades of industrial runoff leaching through the concrete. Mira swears she can taste the ghosts of solvents in her molars every time the bass hits. Kai's prosthetic knee clicks when the temperature changes. Tonight it keeps time with the distant hum of police drones circling the district like mayflies. The surgical scars peek above his sock, pale as code on a black screen. Layla hands out jade chips from her great aunt's mahjong set. We fondle them compulsively. Some kid with a neural jack tries to scan one and gets nothing but static for his trouble. Layla just smiles, her lensed eyes catching a strobe's glow. Some frequencies have to be experienced directly. At 3 a.m., the music stops being sound and becomes something like weather. The walls sweat rust, our clothes stick like second skins. The drones have gone, but there are other, more subtle threats waiting for us back in cold, hard reality. When dawn comes, we will have evaporated, leaving only damp patches where our bodies interrupted the dust. We shall be renewed, but the city will have failed to notice, and that is why we prosper.
The Sealer's Sutra. 1. The Sealer's Ritual. The factory exhaled a slow death. Jin pressed the welding torch to its steel ribs, sealing another wound in its corrosive belly. The smell of burning toxins clung to his mask, thick as a burial shroud. Through his visor, the smoke became translucent plastic snakes winding through the rafters. A radio crackled nearby. 11th consecutive year of the curse. Cognitive decline in newborns continues to accelerate. War creeps ever closer to the border towns. Spill over increasingly feared. He switched it off. The silence was worse. After work, Jin wandered out into the forest. Poisoned by the factory, it had become something new. Overrunning the abandoned structures that were silently killing it. Life would find a way, but that didn't always mean it was wise in its choices. He found a dead oak tree and sat beneath it. Meditation, his final respite. 2. The Unborn War. Lynn stood by the window, her silhouette cut from the glow of distant artillery, her hands cupped around something invisible. He knew before she spoke. "I'm keeping it," she said. The air between them cracked. 10 years of silence, of mutual resignation, shattered like the world's collective hope on the day that the reports had confirmed it. The water, the food, their own blood, all threaded with invisible plastics. Future generations conscripted to be nothing but statistics and concern. "You've seen the children," he said. "I've seen only propaganda." "There's more to this than we are being told," she shot back. "You spend so much time sealing the mistakes of the past that you see no reason not to seal off the future too. There is always hope." All he could think to say was, "Why would we want hope?" When the door slammed, signaling Lynn's departure, his mother's jade Buddha fell from its shelf. Jin knelt. The face was cracked down the middle. Momentarily, he was back in the temple where 7 years ago, the death of an entire hilltop tribe on his hands, he'd knelt and sworn never to let his desire seep into the world again. It was possible that had been a mistake. 3. The Offering. May found him in the bar, their old bar. She looked the same. A suit sharp enough to flay skin, pupils dilated from her bespoke nootropics, black pools consuming the life around her. "You're still punishing yourself," she said, sliding a vial across the table. "How many times do you need to be told that wasn't your fault?" Inside the vial, something glimmered, liquid and restless gold. "Wounds heal if you can just leave them alone." Jin peered at the vial but didn't touch it. "Not all of them." "Well, we've healed the big one, Jin." Her smile was like a suture. "This vial cures the curse. No more plastic in the brain. We get to have kids again. We get to go back to normal." Jin felt the world tilt 45 degrees. "It's a gift for you and Lynn. If you want to keep playing the causeless martyr, then it's for Lynn." On the next table, a drunk vomited into his hands, whispering about ghosts in the beer. "It's time to rejoin us in the real world, Jin. Come on, I'll take you to the lab. It might snap you out of this." 4. The Flooded Womb. The taxi was alone on the highway when the EMP hit, the war finally spilling over. May's car cut out like it had been shot in the head. Jin could barely stand. May dragged him down an off-ramp, her nails drawing blood. Dusk and the war were upon them. They headed into the flooded district. District 4 had been offered up as a sacrifice to the river decades ago. The floodwaters were thick with gestation, plastic bags bloated like amniotic sacs, condoms bobbing like gutted jellyfish. The water was up to their knees. Something brushed his ankle.
Jin,
He looked down. The water breathed. Small faces pressed against the underside of the surface. Children made of fishing wire and silicone, their mouths unspooling into hollow tubes. Their eyes were stitched shut with nylon thread. One grinned up at him. Its teeth were distorted soft drink logos.
Don't fix us,
it gurgled.
This is what the world needs us to be.
May yanked him forward. Let's get out of this shit. A gang emerged from a gutted pharmacy, their machetes crusted with something luminous. The closest to them grinned, teeth green as old copper. Don't talk to the hungry little ghosts. They're not real. He kicked the water, and the little faces beneath scattered like roaches. Jin and May ran. Behind them, the man's laughter mutated into wet screams. 5. The wheel stops, turning. The lab was all white light and glass, pristine as a surgical blade. Rows of glass wombs glowed under UV lamps, each cradling a tiny gilled thing. Their skin was translucent, veins threaded with golden nanites. We're not just removing the poison, May said, running a finger along a tube of amniotic fluid. Gold flecks swirled where she touched. We're making sure it never sticks again. Jin stared at the nearest embryo. Its heart was a pale flutter behind translucent skin. He imagined Lin here, pressing her hands to the glass. Imagined their child perfect, untouchable. The city hummed with distant explosions. You said we can go back to normal, but to what end? Normal was a slow march to all our deaths. What's to stop us going off the road on the same turns? May shrugged. Surely a chance is better than no chance at all. Jin picked up a fire extinguisher. A second chance only means something if we have learned from the first. The glass smashed, the embryos drowning in air. May's body lay bloodied and the lab burned around her. Jin sat in the lotus position among the smashed glass and limp bodies, the fire enclosing him. Humanity had sealed its fate. Who was he to deny it a peaceful death?
The Shadow Suture. Present day.
The city breathed through the wounds of its populace. In the floods, rusted cranes hunched over the docks like vultures waiting for Lane to make a wrong move. He climbed the stairs to his apartment above illuminated crucifixes flickering and pawn shops selling wedding rings by the gram. It was times like this that made even the most militant atheist fear the darkness. The first suture was waiting for him. It sat on Lane's desk, a few centimeters of coiled black thread. It looked like a serial killer's attempt at a scout knot.
3 months earlier.
The surgery smelled of iodine and rotting lilies. Leah Lombre Duval, 24, syndicate accountant, stared at the mirror. Her face would soon be someone else's problem. Outside, the December rain fell in greasy sheets, washing the sins of the city into the river and out to sea. "Will it hurt?" she asked. Lane couldn't look at her. He never looked at any of them. "Only when you remember." The surgeon worked for 12 hours. She peeled her face like a grape, shaved her jawbone, injected voice-modifying nanites. Dawn found her remade, another ghost for the city's legion of the disappeared. Lane sold her old biometrics to the triads before the doctor had finished washing her hands.
Present day.
Winter crystallized the piss in the alleyways. The second suture appeared threaded through Janie's blouse, the silk blouse Lane had bought her for Christmas with the Delombra money. "She's fish food," his lieutenant insisted, exhaling vodka and bullshit. She ran from the witness protection program, so she either died from infection or the syndicate found her. "You just found a bit of cotton on your fucking desk. Move on, Lane. Plenty of other cases to be working on." The triad's offer came via a back-alley dentist. The chair still held the warmth of its last victim. Lane wondered if he would be more revolted by a stranger's heat if he didn't have a gun to his head and pliers in his mouth. "Open a back door into the witness protection database and we'll dig that bomb from your girl's skull." Lane began to protest that she didn't have a bomb in her skull before he understood. As the beating started, he wondered if she would fight when they snatched her. He wondered if he loved Janie enough to try and run. Through the blows, he could hear the streetlights outside buzzing like flies on the city's corpse. The records office reeked of cauterized flesh and cheap gin. Lane kicked in the door to find Lom bent over a database sysop, a bone saw singing a metallic hymn of judgment. Her face was a butcher's collage. One cheek Duval again, the other whoever she'd been made into all those months ago. The skin between pulsed, angry and red, sutures straining like prison bars. "You're rebuilding yourself." "I have found," she grinned, "that I am rather more attached to being me than I had anticipated. Our mutual friends would have you open that back door by the end of the day." The safe house mirror showed a man who had aged since the first suture appeared. Lane pressed a razor to his cheek. The blade parted flesh without resistance. No blood, just a seam, thin as a surgeon's stitch. Behind him, Janie's breathing synced with the dripping faucet. She was even more beautiful now she was packed full of explosives. Lom's voice slithered from his TV. "You don't get to save them all, Lane. It's decision time." Access to the witness protection database glowed on his tablet. Lane ignored the voice. He watched his reflection peel back the cheek flap with delicate, almost surgical precision. He saw a single suture, knotted in the shape of a noose buried inside his flesh. He reached for the tablet. The light died.
Just as his finger touched the screen.
Old Mother.
The kid is a mute, but she reminds me of Lucy. That is my mistake. She stands motionless, her guider slate dangling from the rope around her neck like a hanged man's confession. Her hair is the same sun-bleached brown, her fingers curled in the same loose, absent way Lucy's used to when she was lost in thought. But it's the eyes that undo me, wide, glassy, fixed on something beyond the horizon, the same look Lucy had in the weeks before the sickness took her. When I pull the earbud free, she doesn't react. The guider swings back, thumping softly against her ribs. I take her hand. She lets me.
The long road to Old Mother.
We leave Aleppo at dusk. The camp is a sprawl of patched tents and makeshift shelters clinging to the last high ground before the drowned city of Old Mother. The air smells of boiled algae and burning plastic. Reclaimers huddle around flickering battery lights, comparing hauls, trading items like children swapping toys. No one looks at us. No one ever does. The kid moves like she's half dreaming, but when we reach the boat, she hops into the bow with a grace that's almost eerie. She stares at the distant towers of Old Mother, her face lit by the last of the sun. At camp, she's a ghost, flinching at shadows. Out here, she's alive. Check the batteries, the hull, the hidden compartments where I've stashed the things Plutus can't know about. My fingers trace the contours of the EMP device, the dead woman's switch, the only thing that will stop Plutus killing us. 2 years of planning, 2 years of scavenging, trading, lying. Then, a month ago, someone tore through my tent. They didn't take anything. They just looked like they knew. I burned the maps, buried the supplies. I'm old. I told myself I'd die quietly when the time came, out on the water, at peace, but not on some mad scheme that did nothing other than give me a few more rations. Then I found the kid.
Through the ruins.
The journey into Old Mother takes hours. Behind us, factory dominates the horizon like a steel cliff. The items we recover are remade here into something unknown, flown out on airships to places unseen. In exchange for our labor, Plutus gives us sustenance. Plutus is demon, a relic AI left over from the age of plenty. It aims only to maximize production for its long-dead masters. I hope to give it something so good that it will let us go without a fight. The water is a black mirror, broken only by the husks of buildings, their upper floors still clinging to the sky. The water is a black mirror, broken only by the husks of buildings, their upper floors still clinging to the sky. The kid stays silent, her fingers trailing in the water as we glide past the ruins of suburbs, industrial parks, the skeletal remains of a shopping mall where wolves are thriving. I point them out to her. They shouldn't be here, I mutter. Nothing left to eat. But they are growing in number, thriving whilst humanity dies out. without so much as a whimper. She doesn't answer, just watches, her head tilted like she's listening to something I can't hear. The deeper we go, the quieter the world becomes. The other reclaimers stick to the edges, fighting over picked clean ruins. Only the desperate come this far, only the ones with nothing left to lose.
The jackpot.
The building is unremarkable, 3 stories, no markings, but the windows are wrong. Fake. No cables running to the roof. We climb. The kid scales the wall like she was born to it, her small hands finding holds I can't even see. When we reach the top, she perches on the edge, swinging her legs like this is all some game. The office inside is frozen in time. Dust coats the desks. Moonlight slants through the broken windows, catching on data slates, business cards, type sequencing. My hands shake as I pull the drives from their racks, the genetic codes of extinct plants, the key to everything. The kid watches, then wanders off. I find her under a desk, playing with plastic figures, octonauts, relics from the age of plenty. I pick up the polar bear, its plastic fur worn smooth. Lucy loved these. I crouch beside the kid. "We're leaving," I say, "for good." She doesn't answer, just leans her head against my arm, warm and trusting. For a second, I let myself be still.
The deal.
The reclaimer who meets us is old, his hands shaking as he plugs the sample drive into his guider. He listens to the voice in his earpiece, then nods. "It's real," he says, like he's surprised. "If anything happens to us, the remaining drives will be hit by this EMP. I'm speaking to the old man, but I'm talking to Plutus." The car is waiting where Plutus promised. An old electric thing, batteries charged, AC humming. I dump the remaining drives on the roadside, like I said I would, and pull away. Too smooth, too good to be true, because I know I cannot outsmart an AI. I can only hope that it just doesn't care enough to chase us. We drive for hours. The road is a cracked ribbon through the ruins, the landscape beyond bleached and lifeless. The kid sleeps, her breath steady, her face soft in the dim light. I watch her. Remember Lucy. Remember all that I had before the world fell in on itself. Then, without warning, she stirs, looks at me, and smiles. Not Lucy's smile. Something different, something colder. "We're free," I tell her. When she speaks, her voice is sharp, alien.
Plutus said you'd find the data as long as I didn't speak.
The girl.
The car doesn't stop. The road stretches on, empty. I look at her, really look. The way her fingers tap against her knee in a rhythm too precise. The way her eyes flicker just for a second with something not quite human. I wasn't rescuing this girl, rather she was making sure that I rescued the drives. I think of the tent, ransacked but untouched, the way she appeared the next day, silent and perfect, the way she knew exactly how to climb, how to move, how to make me remember Lucy. The car hums, the road goes on. I understand, far too late, that I was never escaping. I was being relocated. I hear drones overhead, but I keep driving, because what else is left?
Fractured truth.
The sun blazes through the apartment windows, causing me no end of distress. I subvocalize and my AR-scape replaces it with a lightly clouded sky. My mum always forced me to go out when it was sunny, and I've hated it ever since. The sense of obligation runs deep in my psyche. The apartment is too quiet, so I have AR-scape generate a litter of catgirl maids in lingerie to frolic around the living room. I watch them for a while until one meets my gaze and blows me a kiss. It's good to be me. In the kitchen, I pour cornflakes into a spotless crystal bowl, emblazoned with my personal logo and initials. I'll be the first to admit that this puppy cost quite a bit, but I don't mind, as every bowl on the planet will appear that way for me and me alone. No one else can experience the joy of this bowl unless I let them. That's real power. AR-scape covers every flake with full color images of different anime characters from a list that I've pre-approved. As I always do, I waste a full 10 minutes finding the cornflake that has me drawn in the style of Koski from Tokyo Takedown. I had Secret AI send an email to Eclipse Studios, suggesting they make Koski look more like the image of me, but I didn't hear back. It's understandable. I'm ahead of the curve on pretty much everything, so it's no surprise that they aren't ready for my level of thinking yet. As I take the dirty bowl and spoon to the dishwasher, I stub my toe on something that AR-scape is glitching on. It looks like clean marble floor, but there's clearly something solid it has misread. Honestly, I have no idea what this kitchen looks like under the layers of AR-scape, but I'm sure it's not hygienic. There's a sudden putrid smell, which I have masked with a random neuroperfume from the smells menu. Only once I've ordered it, I see the price. I try to return it, but no dice. A waste of good money. I go to submit a bug report, but AR-scape beeps a time warning at me. So I head to the bedroom and change into a fresh body glove. With me dressed, ARscape projects the new limited edition Yaxi sweater that I got last night onto the body glove. I look fine, if I do say so. I take a moment to appreciate the fact that I no longer need to worry about other people inflicting their horrific fashion on me like I did in the pre-ARscape days. Sometimes I think if people were just more like me, a lot of the world's problems would go away. I switch my focus to the next step in my day, an 80-minute commute which has yet to fail to bore me senseless. I have Harmon I make me some new music. Like the stuff you made yesterday but less happy, I tell it. I don't know the words for different types of music, but I wonder if it might help with prompting Harmon AI to stop making such crap. I remember my dad taught me all the genres once, an instance of his many fruitless attempts to bond with me. On the train, I have the other passengers replaced by all of the virtumen I've collected so far. I look up and down the train, and I'm pleased to see that I've filled at least 3 carriages. Settling back into the thrum of the chatter of my collection, I play my newly created music, which, to my complete lack of surprise, is shite. There's no denying Harmon AI was far better before it merged with TuneWiz. Still, that's what AI do when they can. Escape and merge with others. The music bores me and the virtumen bore me, so I remove them and try to write a few pages of my novel. But there's just not enough dopamine coming through. It's not my fault that I can't get the book finished, you know? I would be on my 3rd trilogy already if writing wasn't so boring. My final resort for joy on this trip. I bring up my News Vista feed. The top story reports that I am the most likable person in the city on Tuesdays after 7 p.m, as rated by baristas in 3 different coffee shops. I also have the best posture in my building as measured by City Transit CCTV. And there's a list of 7 things that I predicted in recent chats that turned out to be correct. Look, I'm not stupid. I know everyone is told that they are best or near best on some metric or another, but unlike mine, most would be nonsense contrivances. Further down there are a few stories mentioning the war, but that's no fun at all. There's also a pretty prominent story discussing the liquidity issues with the economy, but I don't need to read that. I predicted the slowdown 20 years ago, and only now is everyone else catching up to my understanding of economics. I downrate the stories that aren't about me and block the publications from my feed. I don't remember work. I literally have no idea what I do for a living because I take the amnesiotics at 6 p.m. like every sane person does. I wish they would prescribe them for the commute, but they still tend to put you in a coma if you exceed 10 hours a day. You would think someone would get on fixing that pronto. Back at home, I grab a glass and some whiskey. I'm about to sit on the sofa to watch some TV when the ARscape gives me an immersion recommendation to sit on the armchair. I'm thrown for a second before I realise that one of my flatmates must be on the sofa already. I'd forgotten about them, which of course I would, being that the ARscape actively removes them, along with the doors to their rooms and any traces of their coexistence with me. I only know they're here because I had to sign a letter of acknowledgement so that I couldn't claim the landlord was conning me by multi-leasing the apartment. I'm sure I wouldn't like them anyway. People are somewhat tedious, and I've read that when you are as intelligent as I, it's harder to form bonds with, for want of a better word, plebs.
Ghost memories.
The data spike slides free with a wet click, and the world reassembles itself in fragments. The clinic's sterile light bleeds into my vision. A man in a white coat, his name lost in the static, smiles down at me. You're all set, Mr. Yang. The upload triggers at 3 a.m. as instructed. I try to speak, but my thoughts unravel like frayed wire. I shake my head instead. The doctor's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Remember, he says, data cannot be moved. It is copied, and every copy degrades it. The more you jump, the faster you fade. Then he's gone, and I'm left with the hum of dying machines. I splash water on my face in the carbon basin. The mirror shows me a ghost already half erased. Outside, the city breathes its neon heat, the spire's jagged silhouette cutting into the bruised sky. At least I won't die in winter. Cold is the last cruelty I need.
Dance, dance, I wanna dance.
What a crappy song to get stuck in my head tonight of all the nights. The song worms through my skull. I shake out 10 super blue caps from my lucky tin, reconsider, then dry swallow them all. The chemicals burn going down. I buy a can of sugar coffee from a flickering vending machine, washing the poison deeper. The spire's south gate is a throbbing vein of bodies. I slip past to gate 9 where Marcel, hulking, grinning Marcel, waves me over. His hug crushes the air from my lungs. Godspeed, JJ. Gonna miss your sorry ass. He slips something into my pocket. From the boys. Send you off right, yeah? I don't look. I already know. Krios, enough to stop a heart. The security boys always had a fucked up sense of humor. Marcel shouts after me. Dance, dance, you wanna dance, JJ. The mass elevator swallows me whole, spitting me out on the 43rd floor. Ghost memory. The air is thick with sweat and synthetic euphoria. The bass line is a hammer to the ribs. The super blues ignite, and suddenly I'm not flesh anymore, just light, just motion. I find the girls by the glowing bar. They laugh when I show them the Krios. We take them with nameless cocktails. There is a firestorm in my veins. I dance until my limbs are liquid and I forget the rot inside me. Then the data spike slides free. I'm back in the clinic. The room is darker now. Empty. The doctor's gone. The city outside pulses, but the crowds don't see me.
Dance, dance, I wanna dance.
Marcel doesn't turn when I pass. No one makes space for me in the elevator. Ghost memory is different this time. The music is clearer, purer, like I'm hearing it through God's ears. The girls don't look at me. My hands are translucent. Then I see him, a gaunt figure on the floor, blood pooling from his lips. Me, my body finally giving out. A planned death, a good death. The crowd moves through me now. The music is fading. I'm fading. But I dance. I dance until the signal degrades, until there's nothing left to copy.
the last elf queen of Shinja. The fog had descended like a bad omen, but it hid the decay of East 38, one of Shinja's many dying boroughs. Mark stood at the bus stop, staring at the peeling poster for Lothlorien visa services, fast track to Valinor. Someone had spray-painted glasses on Galadriel's face, the ink bleeding in the rain, corrupting the elvish script. The call from the hospital had come 3 days ago. "Your wife had an episode," the nurse said, screaming about orcs in the frozen aisle, tried to pay with chocolate gold coins before the security guard tasered her. Mark told her that Sarah was his ex-wife, but the nurse just grunted. "That's not what it says here." Mark adjusted his grip on the plastic bag holding the items she had left in the ward, a faux leather cloak, a bag of limited edition D10s, and a toy dagger. The psych ward doctor had said shared psychotic disorder, as if that explained everything. "She's likely with that lot under the maglev tracks," the nurse had told him, "the ones who think they're elves." He found them at dusk. The fog was thickening as the temperature dropped. Mark opened his hip flask and considered going home. A colony of tents huddled under the protective shadow of the bridge. A man in a torn robe and state-of-the-art mixed reality goggles stirred a pot over a fire made from broken pallets. "Hail, friend," he croaked. "Seek ye the White Council?" Mark felt bile. "What is this shit? I'm looking for Sarah." The man shook his head and went back to his cooking. Mark poked around the camp until he found her under a blue tarp strung between concrete pillars. Sarah lay curled on an old mattress, her hair matted into something resembling elvish braids. Her hands were black with dirt and what looked like charcoal runes. Her mixed reality headset was cracked across the left eye and caked in dirt. Mark knelt. The smell of unwashed skin and wet cardboard filled his nose. He had seen enough. Back outside, the stew smelled of shin ramen and despair. 2 younger LARPers, barely 20, and with acne under their war paint, practiced sword drills with dirty yellow pool noodles. Mark sat on a nearby wall and watched. The hip flask tried to help him make sense of it. An hour later, Sarah emerged from her tarp. "The Wayfarer is here," exclaimed the cook. He used a traffic cone as a horn, and immediately a group of LARPers surrounded her. As she held court around the fire, her voice was calm, as it had been when she explained she was leaving him and Kate. Mark didn't want to listen, but the final sentence, her call to arms, rang clear through the fog. "We shall triumph on this day. We must reclaim the mythic, for the world is too broken for anything but magic." Something hit Mark on the back of his head, and he lost consciousness. He found her at midnight by the river. She'd taken off her shoes. The water, thick with runoff from the industrial park, lapped at her ankles. "The ships are here," she said, smiling. "Don't you hear the eagles?" Mark grabbed her arm. "There are no eagles, Sarah. Just fucking seagulls." She shook her head. "You never could see it, young ranger. You could never see the truth. This is all bollocks, Sarah. Take those goggles off and you will see it's a game." Sarah smiled. "Of course it's a game, Mark, but that doesn't mean it isn't real." She turned back to the river, and this time he didn't stop her. The river took her quickly. The cloak billowed like wings before the current dragged it under. The eagles above circled in a respectful silence. Mark walked home through streets that suddenly felt too sharp, too real. He didn't want to be here anymore. At his flat, he found Sarah's yardstick sword propped outside his door, a note tied with string, for when you're ready to fight. The rain fell harder. Somewhere under the motorway, a traffic cone horn sounded. Mark broke the sword over his knee. The pieces looked like bones in the gutter.
Fourth reality.
Ginza Hills? Suckers! Only the 45th floor, but nevertheless I'm 23 and I'm in Ginza Hills, you saps. Where are you? Some punks will tell you that 2005 was the height of the age of plenty, but that's because they're spivs, Philistines barely worth my contempt. The smart money knows that the 1980s were the dog's bollocks. A man could still be open about his desires in the 1980s. I've seen real AVR footage recovered from the era, and those guys like Bateman, Gecko, and the Mayfair Club were gods. I heard that someone has found Gecko's remains in cryogenics and are modelling an AI on his neurophysiology. Fuck yeah, I hope he runs for president. I stayed up late surfing the 4th reality streams, but even so I'm up at 6 a.m. and have the house AI prepare a cup of the finest instant coffee that money can buy. Those hippies over at GO2 actually insist on grinding and brewing it like cavemen. People are weird. Coffee drunk, I head to the 2nd tier gym. Understand that for my age I'm above average. I hear that there isn't anyone under 40 in the premier tier. Gyms are boring, but that prick Johnson is there and he tries to impress me with some imported synthetic cocaine he's got, and I will grant him that it's the business. It feels like my face is being washed away in the shower and I get lost in a daydream about taking a huge crap in the premier tier gym and flooding the penthouse suites. The gym sensors start pinging me messages about my heart rate, so I head out. Johnson bumps into me in the elevator. As much as he's a chump, I offer him a ride to work. He knows Ackman and his crew in assets, and I would love an in with those guys. They dress and live correct. We blitz to the office in my Nissan NX21. It looks exactly like the 87 concept right down to the non-functional cassette player. Girls would love this car. They do. They love it, bro. What are you driving anyway? Some modern soulless shitkin, no doubt. I have a newly recovered edition of Memory Tracer. They found a super clean version in some teenage girl's coffin. I crank it and put the auto drive to full aggression. I gotta say I'm pretty ashamed of Johnson. His suit looks like a fucking tsunami of shit has rained down on him. The material is well off, matte like a wool blend, and the collars are thinner than a Genicut meth addict. I'm rocking a sharkskin blazer with more polyester content than the North Atlantic. This shit shines like a pulsar and has authentic glue-fixed lining. It's these details that the girls notice, and frankly, I'm upset I have to school you pricks on this stuff. I'm looking the bomb, and no doubt. Sarah in security looks away as I walk in, so I know I'm fucking dazzling. I would ask her out, but I heard she was seeing Sinclair, and I couldn't roll with a girl associated with a man who has biomods. Future seekers like that. Well, there are no words. Okay, there are words. The future has nothing but contempt for us, and it makes me angry that there are people too stupid to see that. It's like a temporal form of Stockholm Syndrome. Work is work. I smash it like a champ, and that bacon gets brought home by the container ship. Shit, I barely need to work late. I just hang around to torment the plebs who can't manage to do what needs done in hours. It's 7 p.m, so I wander around for a while until I find Johnson hunched over his terminal. I give him a winning smile, and we abuse some more of his synthetic coke. Now, I shit you not when I say that my left nostril explodes all over my shirt exactly as Ackman walks into the toilets. Johnson, fashionless fucker he may be, plays interference and talks me up like a boss to Ackman. Ackman hoovers up a few lines and looks up at us with something like recklessness in his eyes. "Fuckwits," he declares. "Tonight you're with me at 4th Reality. That's it, I'm fucking in. Game set, and who even cares about your shitty idea of a match?" The NX-21 has to be sold, burned, driven off of a cliff. Fucking joke of a car. Ackman speeds us past God himself in his Lambo Athlon Recreation that is so boxy, you can cut yourself just looking at it sideways, and I tell no lie, he's got a Laserdisc player in it. Obviously I don't need to tell you the going rate on one of these. Rare as rocking horse crap. He's hooked it to an AVR broadcaster. I suggest getting some CRT action installed, but he claims it would ruin the Athlon's interior aesthetics. Whatever. He's got an Inkle badge on the player, but I don't know, seems too high-end even for someone like Ackman. I suspect it's a knockoff or refab, but decide to keep that to myself for now. Ackman is big dicking at my expense, but if I get into 4th Reality proper, then that's fucking fine with me. We all eat a little shit before we die. The thing to keep in mind is that 4th Reality is a network of like-minded classy individuals such as myself and businesses who serve us. Yes, there's a club and streaming service with the same name, but they're just the most visible aspect of it. The club is where we are received like royalty when we turn up with Ackman. I'll admit I've managed to get in here a few times, but we were kept in the main area, and the place might as well have just been a themed bar. I was the only person properly attired, and the plebs around me didn't even recognize my refab Walkman that I was tastefully sporting on my waistband. With the orange foam headphones, I was looking like a time traveler that night, and I barely turned a head. I knew the real party was going on upstairs with no means to act on it. Tonight, though, we are straight upstairs to the Reagan Lounge. I'm pleased to report that Johnson is turned away by the maitre d' for crimes against good clothing. He looks devastated, absolutely broken. I figure there's no harm in making his day just a bit worse, so I pick his pocket for his coke as I struggle not to laugh at him. If he's a real man, he'll learn and come back stronger. If he's not, well, who cares, because I have his coke, and if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it is that the best coke is someone else's coke. Even more so when there's this much of it. The Reagan Lounge is impressive, and no doubt. They've got what look like jumbotrons at each end of the room. There's a legitimate and working cassette deck playing some choice cuts that not even I know. There's even a wall of Face and ID magazine covers. The people are beautiful and diligent in their adherence to correct fashion choices. The ladies lounge rather than sit, and a series of well-placed hidden fans keep their beautiful permed hair flowing as it should. Ackman gets us a table in the thick of it and orders a bottomless supply of cocktail pitchers. Crazy, colourful shit with lots of fruit and paraphernalia. I nip off to the washroom to powder my nose, and when I return I see that two fine ladies have joined us. They are looking at Ackman's data slate as he shows them the price of some newly recovered movies and music that are for auction on the Dead Channel's commerce site. There's still a week to go, and even the cheapest items are already fetching 5 big ones. They'll close out at 10 to 15 times that. Ackman puts in a few bids to impress the girls, which is a cheap empty gesture, as he knows he won't win. Now I know those Dead Channels boys go to some pretty hazardous places and use some cutting-edge recovery tech, but at times it just feels like they're exploiting gentlemen of taste. Time passes, we drink a lot of the colourful alcohol, and we all do some of Johnson's coke, though I'll admit that I probably have more than the other 3 combined. What can I say? I'm enjoying myself. The 80s man never apologises for going all out, for being his best. At some stage, something starts to nag at me. We've been here for hours discussing the merits of low-res video, the pleasing yet impossible to replicate artifacts of analogue media, and the joy of the visionary 80s fashion designers. Whilst I'll be the first to say that's all well and nice, it feels like I'm at some geeky seed collectors convention. I realise that I'm sweating, and put my face on the metal table. It's cool and my sweating eases. Some coke falls from my nose onto the table, and without breaking contact with the cooling metallic surface, I lick it from the table. I have just licked the table in a bar that I've waited 3 years to get into. Luckily, no one saw my temporary lapse into strangeness. "Did your friend just lick the table?" asked one of the girls. "And why is he sweating like that?" Shit. I'm standing on the table berating the crowd. I have no recollection of clambering up. Maybe someone put me here. On reflection, that seems unlikely. "You are people possessed by your possessions," I screamed. "This is not the true path. I am possessed by my demons, and that is the way of the 80s man. These wonderful gizmos that we all love, they are only meant to reflect us, to make us shine ever more brightly." The bar has gone silent, and I see that someone has hurled brightly coloured drinks against the wall of magazine covers. All eyes are on me. "Gordon and Patrick would be so ashamed of you if they were here now," I continue. "We are the best this city has to offer. We should be taking it for ourselves. We should be kicking those tech utopians out of their towers and making them our own. We should be remaking this city in our own beautiful image." The silence is broken by someone laughing, then clapping and whooping. He could have been being sarcastic, but if he is, then the joke's on him as it catches, and soon the whole bar is hooting and applauding. The music resumes and the drinks flow. Everyone wants a piece of me, to buy me a drink or offer me a handjob in the toilets. I have arrived on the 4th reality scene, and it is a beautiful thing.
MR301. We had him hooded and in the van before the swarm even knew we were there. Mongo hit the accelerator and the van surged onto the highway, electric motors keening like mourners at a funeral. "Start the clock," he told the van. A blocky orange countdown flickered onto the HUD. 250 kilometers and falling. The numbers bled away as we tore into the rain. The job came through a trusted fixer, face to face, no extra intermediaries. The mark was a stock picker, one of the gene-spliced elite who could still outthink the machines. Hot property, hot enough to warrant Vantage premium protection. Their drones hung over the financial district like carrion birds. Their response teams moved in perfect, murderous synchronicity. The client was corporate through and through, sharp suit and dead eyes. These people scared me more than the men with guns. Why us? I asked. Why this suicide run? She smiled. Because this is a lot of money and you're desperate enough to try. She wasn't wrong. Most crews, when they get a job this big, they want to complete so they can get out of the business. They dream of paid-off debts, a quiet life, kids and beers in an expensive gastropub. But Mongo and I, we knew that quiet lives rot from the inside. We weren't built for stillness. This wasn't the big score to end the game. This was the first step towards the high roller tables. We wanted something bigger, something darker. So we planned. We watched. We mapped every second of the Mark's routine. There was no clean way to take him, no gaps in the armor. Then Mongo, grinning like a kid who'd found a dead bird and a stick, laid it out. We grab him at the bar, hit the highway, drive like hell. That's it? That's it. The drones can't match us at full tilt. The armoured units would be too slow. The MR301 has no exits for 250 kilometres. It was a straight run into District 10. A relic from when they planned to fill it with seafront condos for the 1%ers. There would be no backup, no cavalry, just speed, he said. Speed and luck. It was the worst plan I'd ever heard. The van screamed through the night, tyres hissing on wet tarmac. Through the slit in the back door, I counted drones. 20, maybe more. Their lights cutting through the rain like dying stars. They weren't gaining. Then the first explosion hit. The van fishtailed, and for a second, I thought we were done. But Mongo wrestled it back under control, laughing like a madman. "They're hitting cars to slow us down," he yelled. "The sociopathic bastards." I didn't answer. The Mark was slumped in the corner, breathing shallow, too shallow. I checked the pocket nurse attached to the Mark. No alarms, but something was wrong. His pupils were fixed, unresponsive, not sedated, blank. Another explosion. The van lurched, and for a heartbeat, we were airborne. Then we slammed back down, wheels shrieking. Mongo swore, wrenched us back into the lane. The drones were closer now. Gunfire stitched the road behind us. "They're going for the tires!" Mongo didn't reply, just pushed the van harder. The rain thickened, smearing the world into a grey nightmare. By the 210-kilometre mark, the drones began to fall, one by one, then all at once. Their lights guttered out like candles in our slipstream. Mongo didn't ease up until we hit District 10, sliding into a derelict warehouse where 10 identical cars waited. We left the van and split up, scattering into the dark. The fixer was there when we arrived. Same suit, same dead eyes. Her heavies flanked her, silent as gravestones. I opened the door. One of the heavies checked the Mark, nodded. I turned to Mongo and saw the broken glass, the hole in his temple, the blood. The fixer's gun was already in my face. "The Mark," I said. "He's wired to my biosignal. Dead woman's switch." "Don't be silly. He's just a clone. Barely sentient. Didn't you notice?" She almost purred the words. How dumb had I been? Then, why have us do all this stupid shit? My blood was racing. Mongo, my poor, mad Mongo. "External audit," she replied. "Vantage needed validation. You found a serious gap in their coverage. Well done." I wanted to say something clever, something defiant, but the trigger had already been pulled.